What are things racist people do that they don't think is racist? This is a long one. I had a coworker when I was a manager in a major retailer. We were running a project that required third-party hiring. Well, in this team was a group of 7 POC who rode together for work. Whenever I was around, they were hard-working and quick to listen. But whenever I was at a different location or off for a few days, I would come back and this manager would brief me on how things went, and every time she would bring up how terrible and rude and lazy this group was, and when I would go out to the floor, they would greet me with things like "Thank God you're back, we were about to quit." It went on like this until one day I was coming back, halfway through shift, drive time, and the group was leaving, clearly pissed off. Said they couldn't stand her racist ass anymore. Apparently she accused them of being disrespectful and probably stealing like you people do. They ended up filing a case and reporting her. I was told I was going to have to provide testimony, as the only other manager present. Right before I got on the call, she actually said, "You know I'm not racist. I have even dated a darkie." I was floored. I held nothing back in the testimony. Yeah, only the least racist people say darkie. She's racist and also apparently time traveled from 1954. Sounds about right. I worked with a guy that was in late 20s back 2013 to 5 that used to say things like, "I never much cared for the blacks." That was progressive of him. God, he was a poss. "I never much cared for the blacks" is way more kind than the way he phrased it in his head. Compliments that go like, "You're so compliment for your race." Describing a particular member of a minority group as one of the good ones. I was told I was one of the better black people. Like TF does that mean? And they probably thought that they were complimenting you. I remember a white suitmate telling me in college that I wasn't really black, as though it was some kind of honor to be seen as non-black. I thought so, but I didn't want to engage with that person anymore, so ever since then we have never spoken. If we stop immigration of Latino people, who will clean the toilets? Paraphrased quote from Kelly Osbourne trying to be woke. Edit, I do think Kelly wasn't saying Latinos should only clean toilets. My problem is it seems like she's saying we should continue to let Latinos in so they can continue to clean our toilets, being underpaid. Do the shitty jobs no one else will do because they don't have a choice. What she should have been aiming for, is to say, why can't we be humanitarian and respect these hard-working people's right to a better life? Make legal immigration easier, provide education, training and support so they can become skilled and have better jobs? What if we provided more aid to the people currently living in their own countries so they don't need to flee? That's why it's racist. Because she's saying what's happening now is okay. We should not be condoning the status quo. Her reason for accepting immigrants: because surely no white American will want to clean my toilet, for exploitative low wage, and we need someone to do it. I like how Mexicans are lazy slobs but somehow also taking all the jobs. We have a comedian in Scotland, Frankie Boyle, who does a bit related to this. I'm paraphrasing. If someone can come to this country, with no money, nowhere to live, doesn't speak English and has zero connections, but somehow steal a job from you. Maybe you're the one that's shit. Edit, perhaps it was Doug Stanhope? My memory is terrible. Edit 2, I find it really interesting that many people can't separate the subject of a joke and the target. I'm stunned at the number of people who don't seem to get that this joke is about individuals that justify their racism by saying they're taking my job. This joke has very little to do with immigrants, it's very specifically targeting people who use that line as a cover. Any whataboutism kinda makes you sound like the target of the joke. Are there legitimate conversations about immigration and labor? Sure. A, is that funny? Not really. B, is that the fault of the immigrant or organizations utilizing abusive work practices? Despite me forgetting who said it, it is a beautifully crafted joke. So goddamn efficient in its subtext. He had a joke about how the stereotypes about the Irish were that they were 1, stupid, and 2, taking Scottish people's jobs, which is an incredible self-own. If they import any more idiots, I'm gonna be out of a job. Which is funnier because both of Frankie's parents are Irish immigrants. Speaking for people of color, but getting pissed at people of color for speaking for themselves. The best recurring example of this in my experience is any time Reddit rediscovers that Eskimo is considered a slur in Canada, but it's generally accepted as part of our native cultural identity in Alaska. Edit, I appreciate the comments, I will try to reply to all. Happy Elizabeth Peratrovich Day. I, Canadian, had a similar conversation with an elder in California. He kept calling himself an Indian, so I asked him about it. He said something along the lines of, "I've been an Indian for 89 years. They aren't taking that away from me too." Took me by surprise, but I appreciated that he answered my ignorant question kindly. Edit: read what this person said for a better understanding of what I was trying to convey. Old.reddit.com. When I moved to an Indian reservation in the 90s, I asked some of my new coworkers what they preferred to be called, Indians or Native Americans. They all responded with some variation of, "We've been Indians all our lives." Only white people say Native Americans. Using the name of their tribe was also a good collective noun. What was really unusual, to me, was that white people referred to anyone that was non-Indian. For example, the black guy at the tribal offices was a white guy. Something similar with the indigenous, Aboriginal, peoples of Australia. They can refer to themselves as a blackfella, regardless of gender, and everyone else, again regardless of gender, and indeed race, as a white fella. They can also refer to themselves as mob, as in I'm mob. This is shorthand, usually online, to let others know they're indigenous. From my understanding, a mob is a little bit different. Aboriginal culture is not all the same, and a mob is one group within. For example, my nephew is part of the Gunjabulla mob. That being said, in different parts of Australia the culture is different. I spent some time with members of my nephew's mob and they acted very different from the mobs I grew up around in Darwin. But yes, they did refer to themselves as blackfella, even the members of their mob who were white passing, like my nephew. Think that they can't be racist if they are a person of color. Refer to a black person as clean and groomed as if it's something rare and special. Every time a black person applied for a job at my old job, this old white lady who was involved in interviews would say he was clean and didn't have those dreads or something similar. Edit: I didn't expect to get so many replies, so here is some more context for the lady who used to sit in on the interviews. I never heard her refer to anyone white as clean or well-groomed specifically. On multiple occasions after interviewing with a black candidate, she would say something like he could never be a technician and insert wealthier primarily white neighborhood name. The company itself had multiple hour complaints by technicians against her and another manager for inappropriate and racially insensitive issues. One of the managers she was friends with outside of work was reported for using the N-word at work, and management tried to sweep it under the rug until they were forced to fire the manager for shoving a Hispanic technician on a job site in front of customers. The customers saw it out of their window and reported it to corporate, so there was no way around it and no sweeping it under the rug at that point. I left the job because working around people like this made me sick. He's so articulate. Reminds me of Chris Rock referring to someone who described Colin Powell as articulate. Of course, he's articulate, dumbass. He's the fucking Secretary of State. I think he did the same about Obama in regards to people saying he speaks so well. I can definitely see it as being a racist thing because obviously as a president he should be able to speak well, but then I look at Bush, Trump, and Biden and maybe people actually were surprised that a president could speak so well. Lol. Obama really is just an excellent order though, nothing racist about acknowledging that. Obama really is just an excellent order though, this is really it. People have to remember that we were coming off the Bush 2 era, so our standards were set really low. To paraphrase one of my favorite scenes from one of my favorite shows, we were all excited simply by having someone who could speak in complete sentences. There's no shortage of racist commentary about Obama and his presidency, but he was truly one of the greatest public speakers ever to hold office. Edit: the quote is from S2EO1 of The West Wing. Leo McGarry, campaign advisor to a presidential candidate, fires the entire heavily experienced campaign staff and keeps the one guy who nobody likes. Because I'm tired of it. Year after year after year after year having to choose between the lesser of who cares? Of trying to get myself excited about a candidate who can speak in complete sentences. Of setting the bar so low, I can hardly look at it. It is an awesome episode, but do yourself a favor and start at S1EO1. I don't think I've seen anyone outside of a movie speak as well as Obama spoke just regularly. Seriously, it's like the man was practicing to be president from the day he was born. DC's TV show Legends of Tomorrow had an episode where they ended up meeting Obama while he was in college, time travel. They definitely had fun portraying his skills at oration and normal speech, if only a little less practiced in his youth. Trying to speak for and save black people like we're defenseless baby animals or something. I've had real nasty encounters with so many white saviors over the years, and they are a totally different beast than your bog standard racist because they really believe that they're on a pedestal and couldn't possibly be doing anything wrong. It's so hard to explain to them that they're doing more harm than good because they genuinely just cannot fathom themselves being wrong. All whilst being super vicious and relentless. Like the cases of voluntourism in many parts of the world. Many go to countries, get their photo ops with the kids, say they were responsible for saving a whole village like they're Captain America, then leave after a month or two. It's like a weird, narcissistic superhero fantasy they're trying to live out. The people I knew who did this stuff never lifted a finger in our own community, but boy did they brag about doing God's work in Mexico.